Hello and welcome to tonight's episode of the 1871 podcast, and our special guest tonight is the Reading Chronicle's Royals reporter James Earnshaw. But before we speak to James, a heads up for you that we've got a few more episodes coming up over the next few days. Now, on Wednesday evening, our guest will be the current Reading FC commercial director, Tim Kilpatrick. And then on Thursday evening, fingers crossed, we're hoping to have Royals legend Leroy Lita as our special guest. So that's still to be confirmed, but as I say, fingers crossed. So that will be Thursday. And then on Friday, we've got something a bit different for you. We'll have two special guests joining us from the Reading Royals ice hockey team in Reading, Pennsylvania. And we'll be talking to them about what they do to engage with their fans and the local community in Reading and Pennsylvania. And Reading Royals also have a lion as their mascot, not called Kingsley, called Slapshot, obviously being ice hockey. So that's something a bit different for you on Friday evening. And then on Sunday, we'll be bringing you our Reading FC quiz. So feel free to tune in anytime from 10 a.m. on Sunday and test your Royals knowledge. And coming soon, we've got Royals legend Steve Coppell back on as a special guest. So really looking forward to having Steve back on as a guest. So we're bringing James in a minute, but firstly, talking of Royals legends, welcome back to Dylan Kerr. And just to bring our listeners up to speed, Dylan, obviously you took over Marumo Gallants in the South African Premier Division with Gallants bottom of the table, and they'd only won 2 games in the league all season. Now, you came in, they promptly won their first 4 games with you in charge, and you're unbeaten in the league since you took over. So bring us up to speed. How's it all going there for you?
Yeah, it's typical bottom of the league football at the moment. Everybody's under pressure to get results. We've played a cup game in South Africa, which I won 2 years ago with this team. Unfortunately, we lost 3-1 against Mamelodi Sundowns, who are the best team in South Africa at the moment. Well, sorry, for the last 5 years, they've won the league. And on Sunday, we played against TS Galaxy in Bloemfontein, and there was about 10,000 people that turned up in a rugby stadium, which is unheard of, that they allow football in rugby stadiums. Obviously, it was built for the World Cup, and we just couldn't score. We got a point. We get a clean sheet, the first clean sheet that the club have had. So I would like to say I'm happy with the point, but I'm disappointed. And I just had a meeting. I said, I feel like we lost the game on Sunday. We had 17 attempts at goal, and we hit the side netting, we hit the post. We had 3 cleared off the line. We had 4 deflections that went over the keeper and just hit the bar, or just dipped over. Everything we did. They didn't have one single shot. So we're going in the right direction. But I've been in charge 28 days, and we've had 7 games in 28 days. And we've travelled to Zambia, and we've travelled to Algeria. So it's been an absolute disaster for a kind of recovery and getting the players to play. But what we've got is, I've brought a great team spirit, and we've got a great dressing room, and that's going to help us, to get these points. And I think the players just now in the meeting, understand where we are and where I am now. So when you're in that rock bottom position, everybody's casting doubt about, are you going to survive? Will it work? But we're doing that at the moment, and I'm very, very happy.
Well, we wish you well with that, obviously. And then as if you needed cheering up after the disappointment of that result, then I'm guessing you watched the Man United game. So that cheered you up no end, I'm sure.
Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk.
Moving on. So,
but no,
go on.
No, for that, I watched it. We was in Bloemfontein, and Bloemfontein's very Afrikaans, right? And we was in the hotel, and I made them put the football on, and obviously they complained because they're all rugby fans. But we were watching it, and I mean, they all became Liverpool fans because of the 7-0 score. But the amount of messages I've got, the memes and the videos, and they've been taking the piss out of me today. Everybody I know is a Liverpool fan. So
yeah, no more than you would have expected, I'm sure. But look, Johnny, I'll come to you now. It's been a couple of days now since Reading's 5-0 defeat at Middlesbrough. How are you feeling now?
Much the same, really. I think it is a disaster. You know, we've had to put it behind us and move on. That's, you know, we got Sheffield United and Millwall this week, 2 big games, 2 cup finals again, isn't it? And yeah, we hope that we get a team go out there, play the right spirit, start on the front foot, and go for it. That's, you know, we've got nothing to lose. But yeah, it's just, you know, our away form's abysmal. But there's something needs to be done psychologically, attitude, or whatever, because we just crumble. And you know, you lose games, but to blame it on, you know, the referee didn't give a penalty, well, that happens. It doesn't excuse you losing 5-0. You know, you need to stick in with the game. I'm sure Dylan would agree, the coach.
Yeah, and just to say, if you can hear an echo with Johnny, he's taken a break from work, as he's very reliable on this show, as you all know. But he's obviously hiding. You're hiding in a cupboard or something again, aren't you? So hence the echo. But look, right here's, you know, I like to put a positive spin where I can. There's not much positive to come out of Saturday's game, but in terms of the overall situation, here's what I think. Now, firstly, we don't need to worry that Burnley might beat the 106 record this season. They're not going to. And I'll tell you why. They can only afford to drop 3 points in the remaining 11 games, because the maximum they can get is 110. They've dropped 6 points in the last 5 games, so that's not happening. So that's that done. Secondly, although the scoreline at Middlesbrough, obviously massive disappointment, the manner of the defeat, all that sort of thing as well. Big disappointment, especially you've got to feel a bit sorry for the Reading fans who made the journey and witnessed that. But let's be honest, it's not a massive surprise that we came away without any points. So it's not really a positive. But what I would say is, for me, it's all about staying up this season, and then we go again next season. And who knows what's going to happen? But even if we do get the 6-point deduction, and we're going to talk to James about that, James Earnshaw, and see what he knows in terms of any latest news. Even if that does happen, we will be staying up, and here's why. So Reading stayed up last season with 41 points, but they would have stayed up with 38 points because the team third from bottom finished with 37. And we've currently got 44 points. So if you deduct 6 points from that, that'd be 38, which is what we finished on last season. And we still got 12 games remaining. So that's the first thing. And then even if we get that 6-point deduction, one thing that's really important to say is the teams that are in the bottom 3 are there for a reason. And it's because they pick up less points than the mid-table teams. So I reckon 41 or 42 points will probably be enough to stay up. So realistically, Reading need 3 or 4 points, something like that, from the next 12 games to be safe, even with that deduction. And we've picked up 6 points in our last 5 games. So even if we do get 6 points deducted, we are going to be safe. So that's my view on it. So without further ado, a very warm welcome to James Earnshaw, who is the Reading Chronicle Royals reporter. So James, welcome to the show to you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you. And let's get straight to the point, James. Firstly, I want to hear your view on why it went so badly wrong at Middlesbrough on Saturday. And then also, why do you think Reading seemed to struggle so much in the away games compared to the home form?
God, if I knew the answer to that question, I wouldn't be sat here. I'd be in Paul Ince's seat, I think, more than anything. I don't know, but the away form is such a tough one. But we line up basically exactly the same at home and we do as we do away. And obviously at home, we get a lot more success because I think teams are naturally a bit more sort of defensive and maybe they allow us to create a few more chances, whereas away, the other team obviously have to take the advantage because they're at home. And then you can't defend for 90 minutes and expect to not give away chances. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So you defend and defend and defend, and inevitably they're going to get chances, and they obviously take them. It's frustrating, and it's more frustrating that they don't seem to be doing anything about it. I mean, we've had this problem all season, and they still just keep saying it's bad, it's bad. We know it's bad, but we've got the good home form. You can't keep relying on the good home form, because eventually it might dry up, and then you're going to have to start getting points away from home. So, we've got 5 or 6 more away games to go. See what we can get from them.
James,
go on, Dylan.
James, why are they inconsistent? I mean, obviously, they've had a pre-season, they've brought the players in, and I agree with. I mean, Paul Osgood made the comment that the owners have ripped the crap out of that club. But they're so inconsistent. They're so, like I said, good home form. Obviously, on my Twitter feed with the Reading fans, football fans are not stupid. They know who play, who don't play, who wears the jersey, like we did back in the 90s with Pride. And we went on the money that they're on now. We did it for the love of the game. We had a bit of, we wanted the club to always do well. Yes, we weren't going to win every game. We always went out there, and the manager picked the team to win the game. And the tweets I'm reading, it's like the frustration with the players that play. It's like it doesn't matter to them. I think they rely on that home form. Going away from home, they should make sure they consolidate at the back, make sure that they don't concede, but still go and try and score, still go and play attacking football. Because other teams do the homework. They'll be doing the analysis on Reading Football Club and saying, right, this is where we get them. And it's working like that. And if they don't get out of that mentality, Mark says they're not going to get relegated, or they're not going to be in the bottom 3. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough out there. And Reading Football Club is a massive, massive football club with a massive fan base. And it seems that, I don't watch the games, but a friend of mine I've just had a coffee with this morning, he went to Reading against, I can't remember which game it was. I got him tickets. He flew from South Africa to London, and I got him tickets, and he says, they were brilliant. He says, what a team, what a stadium. Fans were brilliant. And now we're talking about, they can't perform away from home. They're not playing. But what, why?
Yeah, again, I've got absolutely no idea. And if I did know, I'd be pulling when it comes to the away form. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But they do play more or less exactly the same at home as they do away. So I think it's mainly down to the other team. When Reading do go away, the other team obviously unleash a bit more because they're at home, and it's their expectation they should take the game to the away team. Whereas Reading, other than the Blackpool game, Reading don't tend to do that. They tend to play the same at home as they do away. And it's almost like being the away team in a home game. And
James,
maybe you get away with a bit more at home.
James, just want to ask you, you were at the game, I take it, on Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was it about that? Because obviously there was that discussion after the Liverpool-Man United game, similar sort of thing. Was it a case of Middlesbrough were really good? Was it that Reading were really bad? Was it a bit of both? What was your take on that?
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of both at the beginning, and then come the end, Reading had just capitulated, as we've seen them do quite a few times this season, especially away. Middlesbrough came out the traps, as you'd expect from a home team in form, and Reading had just about ridden out of that wave. So they got to like 20 minutes, and you thought, right, they can start settling and they can pass the ball a bit now. And then they give away the penalty, which obviously is a contentious penalty. And then they were denied the penalty, and then it was the goal right on halfway when Mbengue lost the ball, and they ran straight from the halfway line in stoppage time that just killed the game. 2-0 in stoppage time in the first half, and it's just, they came out and they just weren't there. I mean, I think they conceded 3 goals in 6 minutes either side of the break. I mean, it was just, they just didn't come out like they could get anything out of it after the break.
And let's sort of bring things up to speed. What's the latest that you're hearing, James, about the 6-point deduction? What's the latest as you understand it?
The club are expecting it, so it's going to be coming at some point, I think. I'm told that it's going to be only 6. So all this stuff about being 12, as far as I'm aware, it's not going to be 12. It's going to be 6, which will drop Reading down to 21st, 6 points clear of the bottom 3. So yeah, I think that's the big thing now, is how do the players react? Do the players come out with slumped shoulders and get fed up that they've had those points docked, or they come out with a bit of fire in their belly hoping to prove people wrong? Because I think last season it was horrendous for form. I don't think they won for the next 2 or 3 months after getting the deduction. If they do that, they'll be relegated. So yeah, we need to bounce back quickly.
And Johnny, bring you in now. What do you want to ask James?
Yeah, James, I was just saying, you've dealt with Paul in press conferences, and he's getting quite difficult to deal with. I think that's probably the best word. And his excuses, you interview him every time, and it's very the same, isn't it? Blames the players. I don't think he takes responsibility as a manager enough for his decisions.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from in that. There's definitely a lot of sort of finger pointing. I do think he's quite good at dishing the blame to lots of people. So I think it is good in some ways. I don't think it's targeted, so at the players constantly, so the players are disappointed. But you've got to hope that he knows his players and squad well enough that he knows how far he can push them in the media and how far he can call them out and kind of what their characters are before some of them will stand up and prove it on the pitch. And, some players don't take well to criticism, and hopefully, he's kept those ones out of the media and, they don't react negatively, and it kind of spurs them on as opposed to bashes them down.
Our defence has been bad for a few years, isn't it? This isn't the one season wonder. Our defensive record over the last few years has been so poor, and I think it's a mental thing for the team, isn't it?
Is it what? Sorry, was that defensively?
Just I think under Ince we've let in 4 goals.
Yeah,
times or something ridiculous. I saw some stat like that, and that's just crazy.
Yeah, I think it comes down to just how much pressure the defence are under, though. I mean, if you're under pressure constantly throughout a game, you're going to give away chances eventually. They always say that the best form of defence is attack, and you can kind of see why, because they get the ball up the other end of the pitch, and it's harder to then break and score. And so much of play is in Reading's half. All it takes is one mistake, and they're in, and they inevitably seem to score at the minute.
Dylan, I just want to come to you now. If you were in Paul Ince's shoes after Saturday, the form at the moment is Reading win at home, lose away, win at home, lose away, and then you get that 5-0 at Middlesbrough, and like Johnny was saying, Paul Ince is complaining about penalties, and kind of almost in a way ignoring the bigger picture, focusing too much on isolated incidents. And yeah, of course, it could have changed the course of the game if Middlesbrough hadn't been awarded a penalty and Reading had. But then ultimately it's a 5-0 defeat. What would you be saying, as a current manager, what would you be saying to your players, if you were in Paul Ince's shoes after a defeat like that?
Well, it's really weird now because obviously the world's changing, and you can't shout at players anymore. You can't swear at players anymore. Back in the day, if you weren't having a good game, you'd be hooked off and you'd be absolutely, slaughtered by the gaffer, and your teammates would actually, have a few words to say. But now I don't believe that happens in football, and players haven't got the backbone now to take a criticism, and like James says, when your back falls under so much pressure, they are going to succumb to a goal. When I lost my job at Swallows, we lost 4-0. We were absolutely superb, and I said to the players after the game, I got them in the dressing room. I said, guys, play like that, but take your chances. You'll win more than you'll lose. You've got the quality. But we made 4 mistakes. We made 4 basic errors, and obviously it was my second game on the bench. It's my second loss, and I got I got told that I was no longer required at Swallows. But I've learned not to single out any player here in South Africa because they don't like that. They haven't got the strength of character to accept criticism. And like yesterday, we should have won like Liverpool did 7-0, but they didn't go in for us. And I said to them afterwards, I'm angry, I'm upset, but I'm so pleased that we created 17 great opportunities. They had 17 opportunities in the 5 games before I took over. In total, in 5 games, they had 6 chances. And and I think Paul, I think Ince's got to now, get the players back on his side, get the players to play for him, like they have done, like they do at home. Get the players to play for him. Yes, they lost 5-0. Yes, they might have a penalty decision that goes against them. Everybody has some decision that goes against them that we don't like. But you've got to keep that team, that squad of players interested. And sometimes you need to say, hang on, we need to freshen this up. We need to throw a couple of young kids in there. Get some young blood in there, get some runners in there, get somebody that's hungry and that's desperate to go and put that extra shift in. And maybe he needs to look at that. The academy is still one of the best academies in the country. So he must start to think and use these players, because then that gives the senior players a bit of a scare, and then think, hang on, I don't want this young 17, 18-year-old coming in my position, because if he does well, he stays in. And, that's how football works.
Yeah. And James, I just want to talk to you a little bit now about your role and how it works, because, I was a sports journalist, a football writer going back to 1989, obviously showing my age now. We didn't even have internet or anything in those days. It was that long ago. So tell us a little bit about, firstly, how the job at the Reading Chronicle came about. Are you from Reading? Were you a Reading fan before you took the job? And did you decide sort of quite early on that you wanted to be a football reporter? How did that all happen for you?
Yeah, so I'm Reading born and bred, Tilehurst. Went to school obviously locally, did all my qualifications, and then did football journalism at uni at Derby, which is the only course that does football journalism, the only uni. So graduated obviously through COVID, which brought its own struggles. And then, I did loads of work experience in the past with the Reading Chronicle. And then I saw this role came up because Matt Joy, the previous one, had left. Me and Benji were the final 2, and a bit more experience than me. He picked me to the post, but they offered me a job in the sort of the general news team. So I helped with the odd game with Benji and whatever else, and kind of showed him around Reading and the club, and the little bits that maybe as an American or not a Reading fan you wouldn't necessarily know, that you'd have to research. And then he obviously had that opportunity at Southampton that you couldn't turn down, and then they offered me. I was on a sunbed in Egypt, and they offered me one to say, Benji left. Yeah.
It's hot in Egypt.
Yeah. It was in the morning, so it wasn't too hot.
No, I mean that. You don't use sunbeds in Africa.
And then they so when I came back, so my last game sort of in the stands was a 4-1 defeat to Blackpool. And then my first game covering it as a journalist was a 4-0 defeat to Nottingham Forest. So
how long ago was that?
It was Paul Ince's first away game, was the Nottingham Forest one.
Because I saw you at the game about just over a year ago, home to Millwall.
Yeah.
Just before you came in, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Benji was still there. Yeah, so that might have been the handover period.
And just what are your in your capacity as a Reading fan, but more so now as a reporter? What do you make of the situation? Obviously, in your time as a fan goes back, quite a way, but in terms of the role, just over a year. It feels like there's been a few little developments, but not a lot seems to have changed in the last year. What's your take on it?
It's been difficult because we've just been so hamstrung by the EFL. I mean, when I came in, it was basically the lowest. I mean, we just had that fan demonstration at the Coventry game. We just had the big 23,000 sellout more or less for the Coventry game and lost, and everyone was angry. And we just about survived at the Barnsley game, the Swansea 4-4, the Sheffield United last minute win, and obviously everyone was on a high. The summer was horrendous because obviously Reading couldn't really bring anybody in of any note, that you'd, if you weren't in restrictions, I don't think there's many that Reading would have gone for that they've got now. Obviously they couldn't keep any of the key players that they would like to have kept. But sort of being more inside the club now than I was, I can definitely reassure the fans that things are getting better than they were when I first came in. There's much more of a plan. Obviously, at the minute, they can't put that plan into action because they've got two hands and both arms behind their back. But should they stay up this year with the deduction, then it should be really back to square one, and EFL kind of leave us alone a bit, and it's back to sort of square one and how it should be.
And James, just on that, I've got one more question after this, but just on that, I think the hope for a lot of Reading fans, myself included, is that we get the transfer embargo stuff out of the way, we get the points deductions out of the way, and like you said, we can kind of go back to square one and start again in the summer. Realistically, is that what's going to happen? And then next season, we will see the difference. Is that how you see it as things stand?
Yeah, obviously with the EFL, everything can change, and there's a lot of smoke and mirrors still. But my understanding is that should the points deduction be dealt out, which we are expecting it to, and should we stay up next year, then the idea is we've had our punishment, and then we can sort of build, and then you've got a little bit of money. I mean, we're not going to go out. Well, I hope we're not going to go out and spend money like we did last time and get into the same position. We've now got a sporting director, we've now got scouts, we've now got, everyone seems to be on the same page, where we should be able to actually put down a plan over 2, 3, 4 years and get there, rather than just splurge money and try and cheat the system again like we did last time.
And the 6-point deduction, it will definitely be this season, as far as you understand, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'll bring the other two lads in a second, but I just want to ask you, because obviously I go back a long way in terms of my career in sports journalism, reporting on football. The role of a football writer is it's kind of the same, but the way that you do it has changed so much. So tell us a bit about, how you actually go about being the Reading reporter for the Reading Chronicle. And how do you kind of compete with the immediacy of everything with social media? How do you sort of, why would somebody pay attention to you, James Earnshaw from the Reading Chronicle, when they can get all their news about Reading elsewhere? How do you deal with that situation?
Yeah, it's with social media now, you've got to create a personality. You've got to become a figure and a person online that people can trust and people can go to, and that obviously takes time to build up. You've got to have a track record over a number of months. I don't just come in and people trust me straight away. But obviously it's helped being a Reading fan and already having a hell of a lot of Reading followers on Twitter anyway, in my my previous role, my life as a fan, as opposed to actually having it as a job. But yeah, it's changed beyond, obviously with the internet now, the paper kind of takes a back seat. When the news comes out, you get it up straight away and people read it, and I'm judged on how many people read my stories and the online stuff, as opposed to the print editions, which obviously would have been in your time. I do enjoy and take pride in doing the print, especially my supplement I do every week. Do eight pages of content, and I think that's still very important, because there's a whole group of people that don't use social media. So especially with Berkshire Live now not being a print, I am really Reading's only source of printed news every week, which is a great responsibility. But yeah, it's all about social media online now these days, really.
And Johnny, is there anything else that you want to ask James about anything to do with Reading?
Yeah, James, how do you feel now that your relationship and all the local journalists have with the club, is it in a good place compared to last year before?
I think so.
Channels of communication.
Obviously, I've only ever known Paul Ince as the manager in my capacity, and he's always been amazing with me. Obviously, my first job out of uni, so I was learning my trade, and at the same time, he was obviously learning the ropes at Reading as well, because he came in a few weeks before I did. But he's been really, really good and consistent. And I think the communication is the bit that the club are obviously trying to improve on. I think it was important that they put that statement out last week when all the rumours were going around from the EFL, because obviously the fans needed to know. And Paul Ince did say on Thursday in the press conference that is crucial to him, was that all these rumours, at the minute he knew anything, the fans would know everything, because, you know, how are fans supposed to trust the club and him and the players if they're not told what's going on, which has probably been, you know, lax over the last 3 or 4 years. It's hard to tell, you know, because it's obviously you've got to see how it goes. But from where I'm sat now, I think things are moving in the right direction.
And Dylan, bring you back in now. What else do you want to speak to James about?
He touched on about the scouting network. They've got a sporting director, obviously Mark Bowen's still there. I think Mark Bowen's been getting hammered on Twitter. It's not nice to be, you know, spoken bad about on social media. But I'm a football fan, you know. I could say a lot about football results, you know, from, you know, I'm a Man United fan, I'm a Leeds fan, I'm a Barnsley fan, I'm a Red fan, I'm a Kilmarnock fan. You know, nobody likes to be, you know, spoken bad about in the media, especially now. You know, back in the day, there was Clive Baskerville, you know, that you know, did all the reports, and we've kind of lost that, you know, the fans' verdict. You know, Clive always had the Reading Evening Post had this fans' verdict where, you know, some random fan would give his version of the game. But when the transfer embargo, so they can start again, where are they going to find these players? Where's the scouting network go? You know, because I don't see that in you know, in a football club that's, you know, bringing foreigners in, and where's the local talent? Where's the academy development? Where's the players that are playing non-league that, you know, can you can always pick somebody? Are they going around and doing this research? Are they going around? And I go into the villages and the rural areas. I mean, I will go, like when I was in Bloemfontein, I did a 2-hour drive, you know, to go and watch a village football game. And these players are absolutely amazing. They'll never be professional because there's like 60 million of them, you know. But for Reading now, it's a restructure, it's a rebuilding. So how is their scouting network? How is their, you know, where's the next James Lambert going to come? Stuart Lovell going to come from? Adi Williams? You know,
the scouting network is something that they've been very, you know, when Paul Ince took the main job from interim, he kind of went in and said, look, you know, if I'm going to take this job, I need to have a backroom picture. So we brought in Mark Bowen, brought in Brian Carey as the head of recruitment. They've just picked up Sheffield United's head of recruitment, so he's now the scout. But it is still very much an ongoing sort of beast kind of thing. I mean, Ince and Alex Race still travel to 2 or 3 games a week to watch themselves, which you probably really shouldn't be doing this day and age. As you know, a club should have enough scouts where the first team manager, they should go to maybe see the game immediately or 2 before to see how the team play, but you shouldn't be out there really scouting players. You should have a team, a network of people like Reading used to.
I'll disagree with you there. I'll disagree with you there, because if that's what they're doing, that shows that they are looking. And yes, they may have you know, I don't have a video analysis. I don't have a sports scientist, because I'm qualified in both of them. You know, and a lot of clubs here now are jumping on the bandwagon that they've got to have 7, 8, 9 technical team members. You know, I don't believe that, because I feel that I need to take responsibility, because it's my responsibility to do my job. So I actually like that if they are going to see these games, you know, like going to watch Wycombe Wanderers, going to watch, you know, Slough Town, going to watch Wokingham, going to see that they can bring somebody in that will, I call it a jigsaw. You know, when I played at Reading, Mark McGee had a jigsaw puzzle, and he brought pieces, you know, and they all had to fit. Can't bang the pieces into, can't try and fit a circle into a square or a triangle into a rectangle. He had to get that, and it worked. It worked because he identified them players. You know, I never expected to sign for Reading in a million years. Never. I came down to Reading. Andy Gray, who didn't play much when I was at Reading, he was the first player I met at Elm Park. Mike Lewis, Rabbit's lovely wife, I can't remember her name now, so she's going to hate me for this. And we got players. Mark got players to play in his style, in his theory, and it worked. And I think that's what what Paul Ince needs to do. He needs to, for Reading's Football Club's future, he needs to get the right players in that want to play for Reading Football Club, not just because they're out of work or they can't get a job or they're being released from a Premier League club. Bring the players in that's going to fit into his idea, into his philosophy, into his.
Yeah, well, he's not been able to do that, has he, at the minute? Because it's all been picking up other people's odds and sods.
But now he's going to have that opportunity. Well, hopefully,
he's
going to have an opportunity to do that.
James, just in case anyone's listening and wondering why Johnny's gone quiet, he's back at work now. He's had to go back to work. He literally was on a work break, so he joined us for kind of the first half, but he's gone now. So bye, Johnny. Thanks for.
Everybody's woke now. Everybody's awake now. So
yeah. So James, I've got a couple of questions for you. So the first one is about Paul Ince. I appreciate you might not want to give your opinion because you've got a relationship with him. You might not want to be, I don't know, inverted commas, too honest. But can you firstly understand that there are still a lot of Reading fans that want somebody else? What do you think will happen based on your understanding? What do you think will happen with the situation with Paul Ince? Do you see him? Do you see him staying at Reading for a while? And what has kind of been the vibe that you get coming out of the club about his position and Alex Ray and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, obviously everybody's going to have their own view, and everyone's entitled to that. And no manager is ever going to be universally loved. I mean, I'm sure there were times when people wanted Coppell's head before they went on to get 106, and McDermott was hard done by the second time round, and people still calling for his head. Personally, I think providing we stay up, I think it's Paul Ince's job if he still wants it. I think it's a long-term sort of project, and I can kind of see from his perspective, he's had 18 months to work with nothing. I think he's well entitled to have a chance with a bit of something to see what he can do, because I don't think we've really seen what Paul Ince thinks he should be able to show us, with his own resources and players that he wants, and then players that are probably of a better standard than what we've been able to attract. But with that, there comes added pressure, and there comes increased expectation, particularly on the style of football and the quality of football. But yeah, I think he's, if he keeps us up this year, he's done 2 sort of fireman jobs, and I think, why not give him a chance to see what he can do with a bit more resources.
And is that the way the club's looking at it? Is that the way that Paul's looking at it? That keep, the mission is keep the club up and then reset in the summer. Is that what it's all about?
Yeah, that's all he said. All he said from day one was 50 points, stay up, and then we can reassess. Because I think they've known from the summer that more or less, this should, fingers crossed, providing nothing else comes up, this should be the end of it, really, in terms of this sort of batch of EFL regulations and, and sort of hamstringing the club for now. So I think this hopefully should be the light at the end of the tunnel. But now, 6 points down, and the pressure ramps up on staying up, because it's not going to be easy.
And before I bring Dylan back in, just wanted to get your view. Big game tomorrow night, Sheffield United, obviously at home. Reading doing better at home than away at the moment, obviously. What's your view, and how do you see that game going tomorrow?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? It's a difficult run with Millwall and Blackburn on next Wednesday as well, all playoff chasing teams. You'd like to think you'd see a reaction. I mean, the players you'd like to think are hurting and should be embarrassed, really. They're losing 5-0, no matter how well you played or what penalties were and weren't given. You shouldn't be losing 5-0. That should hurt your professional pride. and you should want to go out and and prove people that you're better than that. So it's all now down to the players' own personal pride and personal sort of feelings and ambitions. And Paul Ince shouldn't have to say much at all really tomorrow. It should be right. Well, you cocked up last week. Go out and put it right in front of more of your home fans and get ourselves out of this mess that you put us in.
Bring you back.
Right. You watch them week in, week out. What's missing? What's missing?
A creative spark is missing.
Just about players having 5-0 and they've got to bounce back. But what's been missing? Is it a playmaker? Is it a actor? Is it a striker? I mean, Andy Carroll. I'm not an Andy Carroll fan, never have been, but I don't know the guy. I don't know the guy. Somebody that's done. He's at the end of his career. I'm not criticising him because I don't know him, man. And I've only seen him when he was at Newcastle and Liverpool. But I mean, what's missing? What do you see that's missing? Yesterday I saw we had 85% of the game. I mean, it was unbelievable. And what were missing for me was that clinical finisher. We played so one-touch, two-touch football. We were so entertaining. The fans, 10,000 Bloemfontein fans were absolutely. We didn't leave the pitch for half an hour because they were so happy, but we didn't score a goal. So what you watch them week in, week out? What are they missing? What's that? What's that 1, 2, 3 player that they're missing?
They're missing John Swift. I think if you put John Swift in this team, I think he'd pick up 5 or 6 more points because the ball, eventually gets up to the attacking third and there's no one to thread it through to the strikers. So you can't get the best out of Lucas João because Lucas João's best season came when he had Michael Olise and John Swift threading in balls. And if you create 4 chances, he'll score 2 of them. Reading don't create 4 chances, they might create 1. So they need that striker to score. And in fairness, Andy Carroll, 7 goals this season, I think is his highest return for a good 6 or 7 years. Tom Ince is having the best season of his career. I think they haven't necessarily always utilised their players to the best strengths. I mean, it took until last Saturday for Yaku Mate to be played in his proper position out wide, and he absolutely tore Blackpool to shreds. But yeah, I think it's just
James, 7 goals. How many games has he played?
Don't know, probably most of them probably.
So what we had Jimmy Quinn, we had Archie, right? If Quinn didn't score, Archie scored. We had a way of playing. We knew that when we got the ball wide, put it in the box, Quinn had scored. When we knew we needed to play, make sure that Archie got on the ball, he'd score. Lino would score. We had these. We had so 7 goals. He's not. And again, this is not nitpicking, but you just said 7 goals. I mean, he's a big lad. He's a strong lad. He's not got the energy. He's not got the legs as he did when he was at Newcastle and at Liverpool. Quinny didn't. Quinny was 35. We knew what Quinny could do. We gave him service because we knew he'd score a goal. Or he'd score 2 goals. So I mean, it's
a service.
Yeah,
they need. Yeah, and again, that comes down to not playing players in the best position. We've not always played with wingers. Yet we've got Andy Carroll, so you've not really got crosses in the box. And the crosses they have put in the box haven't been very good crosses because they're usually fullbacks that are playing wing back, and crossing isn't really their best strength. But obviously it's needs must because none of the strikers have sort of popped up and had a run where they go, right, I'm the striker. I'm going to stay in this team because I'm going to keep scoring goals. So they've mixed and matched. I think they've had 9 or 10 strike partnerships over the course of the season. And I think Carroll's on 9. Obviously, Tom Ince is the top scorer with 9 or 10. Shane Long's got 2. And Lucas João's got 2 or 3. They're all chipping in, but there's no one that's stepping up with 10, 15 goals.
Yeah.
James, just wanted to ask you, obviously we've kind of touched on it already, get to the summer, all being well, we'll stay up. And then the rebuild starts, if you like, and when we're laying some foundations. What type of players do you think Reading need to bring in the summer? Is it kind of key positions, or is it a type of player with a certain characteristic? Or
I think we need to actually start buying assets, I think, for a start, because if you look at the Championship, it's a selling league, the Championship. You can't always keep your best players. And, you know, look at the successful Championship teams. They've always had players that they buy for £500,000 or £1 million, and they sell them for 10, 15 million quid. You know, that's how most Championship clubs make their money, or, you know, lose less money, because no one really makes money in the Championship. But how you stave off those losses is you might get a couple of big sales. Reading haven't done that for God knows how. I mean, Elise was the only one, and he should have gone for double what he went for if it wasn't for the clause in his contract. You know, I think the next one's going to be Mbengwe. I think if he can extend his contract beyond this season, because he's only on one to the end of the year at the minute, he's still 20, he's still incredibly raw, but there's one hell of a defender in there. And if you sign him for free, he'll easily go for a couple of million quid probably in this current market. And that's then money that you can then reinvest that you've made. You know, low risk, high reward. Josh Laurent, you know, he signed him for free. If it wasn't for him being out of contract, he just sold him for 3 or 4 million quid, probably, maybe even more, if he wasn't quite the age that he was at. But he walks away for nothing. John Swift, 10 million quid player. You don't sell him at his peak of his assets. You know, drag it out. He walks away for nothing. Luka Zhao is going to probably looking likely to walk away for nothing. You've got all these assets and you're not making the most out of them.
And James, just finish up, looking ahead again to tomorrow night. Prediction from you, please.
I'm going to go for 1-1. I think they are kind of, well, you know, they've lost 3 of their last 4. They need a win, obviously, to keep themselves near the top end of, well, in the top 2. But I don't know. Just hope we can drag it out. But you know, who knows with Reading these days.
Dylan, ask you the same. Your prediction for tomorrow, Reading.
Ince will have ripped the arse out of them players. You know, one thing about Ince is his character. You know, he will not want to be embarrassed by one of them results again. So I think he might sneak a little 1-0 or a 2-1 tomorrow. So yeah, you know, I'm gonna go. I loved him as a player, you know, as a character, and I think that's one thing he's got to bring out in these players, get characters on that field tomorrow.
I'll give my prediction now, and actually it's the same as yours, James, but that was my prediction before you said anything. So I'll go for 1-1 as well. So interestingly, none of us think that Sheffield United are going to win. So that's something positive to look forward to, hopefully. So listen, that's all we've got time for tonight. A reminder that on Wednesday evening, our guest is the current Royals commercial director, Tim Kilpatrick. That's available anytime from 7 p.m. on Wednesday. And then on Thursday evening, we're hoping, and we've got our fingers crossed, that we'll have Royals legend Leroy Lita as our special guest, still to be confirmed, but hopefully that will be happening, and you'll be able to listen to that from Thursday evening onwards. And all that leaves me to say is thank you to our special guest, James Earnshaw. Thank you as ever to Dylan, joining us all the way from South Africa as usual. And thank you, Johnny, even though you're not here anymore. And finally, come on, you R's.